Hello, welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie. We are presented by The Athletic. Today on the show, Dieter Kurtenbach is back in the building. Triumphant return of the man. You can see him on camera if you're watching on the YouTube show. It's beautiful. Dieter, what's going on, buddy?
Sam, it's been so long since I've heard those wonderful, wonderful tones coming into headphones that aren't just attached to a podcast player. It's a beautiful thing. We're back. Game theory, baby. Let's do it.
It's wild. Let's go have some fun. Dieter, it's been, what? Probably 6 months since you've been on the show, something like that.
That sounds about right.
It's been a while.
I do a semi-annual appearance.
We need to make it more often, but like you have radio, you have actual life things happening right now, so that makes it difficult to find time.
Well, the beautiful thing is basketball season is effectively over for me. It went on a little bit longer than I expected with the Warriors, and kind of like old times. But nah, man, it's great to be back, and the NBA chaos never stops, not even for me. So we got plenty to get into this evening.
Yeah, and maybe we'll talk a little bit about the Warriors at the end. But first, we want to talk about some of the crazy free agency stuff that has happened over the course of the last week. And I think that the first place to start is that the first enormous offseason trade has happened. That has been the talk throughout the offseason, that there would be a number of big trades this year because the free agency market is not particularly well stocked with great options. Dejounte Murray is going from the San Antonio Spurs to the Atlanta Hawks, essentially for 3 first-round picks, 2 unprotected first-round picks from the Atlanta Hawks, a unprotected pick swap that I believe is in 2026. Sounds right.
That sounds right.
And then also they get a 2023 pick as well from I think the Charlotte Hornets, if I remember.
Charlotte Hornets. It might be lottery protected. That's a messy part.
Yes, I believe it is. So what are your immediate thoughts on this? Because this was a weird one to me. I wasn't entirely sure what to make of it. Everyone is kind of saying, oh, this is a home run. This is the kind of great defensive guard that you need to put next to Trae Young. And on some level, I agree with that for sure. But I have a couple of skeptical thoughts as well. And I'd love to hear your reaction immediately first.
Yeah, there had been some buzz about Murray in Atlanta for a while now. Obviously, his name has been attached to so many other places that Atlanta felt like that was just somebody tossing it in there just to see if it would stick. But then we find out today that it ends up being the case. It's not the most obvious backcourt pairing in the NBA. If you were to somehow get Trae Young and Dejounte Murray together in the Jeff Goldblum fly machine, you would have the perfect point guard because you get Murray's defense, you get Trae Young's offense. And I think that's ultimately what Atlanta's going for here. And that's not to say it's a bad thing. There's a lot of value to having 2 all-star caliber point guards, one perhaps an MVP caliber point guard on the floor for 48 minutes a game and together late in games for serious stretches of the games. I think that it can work. My question is either of them viable off ball? We've seen this.
Yeah.
I think the best example that we could look at is maybe like James Harden and Chris Paul. That was 2 point guards, 2 ball dominant guys, but like Chris Paul is so good at spotting up and shooting. James Harden was a shooting guard until he went to Houston. And it's not to say that it was perfect. And especially on the defensive side, there were certainly some issues, mostly James Harden's, but it worked. And maybe this is just a perfect mesh. I'm really interested to see what kind of offense they're going to run, because I do think you have to divest yourself a little bit from the straight pick and roll stuff that they've been running nonstop with Trae Young. You cannot have just that 40% usage rate stuff with Trae Young anymore. It has to be a little bit more motion. And if they can find the right balance, it could be really, really dangerous and really, really fun to watch. I think that's the first thing that came to mind for me. It's like, ooh, if that thing clicks, that's going to be fun as hell, because both of those guys can really light it up. And defensively, Atlanta really needed just somebody to defend anybody on the perimeter just like once. And Dejounte Murray is going to do way more than that. I know he's not a sort of defensive player of the year caliber anymore, but he is a consistent contender for all defensive teams, even after his ACL injury. So this is the big swing for Atlanta. They still have the John Collins thing that's floating out there. Yep. At a certain point, it's like, maybe they just keep him. Like, I don't know what the hell they're doing. It's been 2 years now of floating John Collins, and he didn't go in this trade, so is he ever going to go? And I just Atlanta needed to make the move, though, right? I know that it's difficult to compare to that sort of post-pandemic season, that very first one, 2021. But they went to the Eastern Conference Final, and they did not maintain that momentum, to say the least, going into this season.
Right.
Call the first go around a fluke or whatever. Like, they should be in the mix in an Eastern Conference that's damn good, but not prohibitive in terms of them getting into it. So they're going to have to do big things. You know, they bring in Landry Fields as the GM. He's going to have a lot of control over what they're done. Clearly he does at this point. I know this is a Landry Fields sort of move. Obviously Travis and all that from up high is giving it the A-OK, but the day-to-day stuff is being handled by Landry. And I don't think they're done, but this alone, I do think, should make them better, because what did they give? I mean, they were probably going to waive Gallinari for luxury tax purposes. It was just a justifiable thing to do. They didn't lose any players. They lost some draft picks. They're making what I think is a sane bet that those draft picks aren't going to be worth all that much. And, I think we all read the Kevin Arnovitz piece on the Phoenix Suns saying the draft, not that big a deal. Maybe the Hawks are buying into that and think that they can go from there. But I think it was a really good trade for both teams, because San Antonio, there's no value in being in the play-in tournament every year. Not when you can't attract free agents. Yeah. And so bottoming out, getting into the tanking process for this upcoming draft class, that seems like a pretty solid move, even with the worsening lottery numbers, and just giving themselves a chance, and probably the next coach at some point in the next couple of years, a chance to build up something new. Seem necessary. And Dejounte Murray, as great as he is, and as much as you want to keep a really good player like that, he had just kind of gotten over the edge in terms of age. It wasn't going to be part of a young core. He was in that kind of weird middle ground. And so getting him to a place that's going up.
Same thing. Yeah, that happened with Derek White as well. Derek White was a 23-year-old when he was drafted, and already is 27, 28 years old, and he just didn't fit the timeline. And DeJounte's younger than Derek White for sure, but the age timeline for DeJounte and this core, which I think they think of as Keldon Johnson, Devin Vassell, Josh Primo, the three rookies they brought in this year, all of whom are teenagers. I think that they're thinking of it more in a longer term variety, and they still don't have the star. Atlanta is the much more interesting side here to me, because one thing they've struggled with Trae Young is finding real backup point guard minutes. With Dejounte Murray, now they can just have Dejounte run the second unit. They're not going to fucking hemorrhage points anymore when Trae Young leaves the court, and
they might be able to get really good second unit, because they're a deep team.
Totally. Yeah, like they're going to be able to actually now run real offense in the second unit. The question that I have is something you alluded to from the jump. It's, what does it look like when these guys are off the ball? And in DeJounte's case, DeJounte is a really good cutter. He is someone that has developed a mid-range jumper, but in today's NBA, like, as a floor spacer, you're only as good as your distance. Yeah, you're only as good as if you can shoot the three. And there are things that DeJounte can do to mitigate that, where defenders have to at least be ready to close out on him on some level, because he's so good at attacking the rim, right? Like, he is so quick at making those decisions. He's a quick twitch athlete. He gets to the basket. He can finish. He's big. He's long. He's athletic. I get it. The thing is, though, that you're never going to take the ball out of Trae Young's hands. Taking the ball out of Trae Young's hands to put it into Dejounte Murray's hands more often does not seem like a great idea to me, for as good as Dejounte Murray is. And he's great. He averaged 22 points and 8 rebounds and 9 assists. Dejounte Murray is a legit borderline all-star player in the NBA.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. He literally made the all-star team this year. Yeah. He's just not as good as Trae. So you're going to get some diminishing returns there. The other part of it is, and maybe this is the impetus where we see this start to happen more. Maybe this is where Trae starts to move off the ball more often, because the key difference, everyone loves to compare Trae Young to Steph Curry, right? The key difference with Trae and Steph is that Steph flies off the ball. He sets hard screens. Like he is trying to get open every single time that the ball leaves his hands. Trae is good for the first action off the ball, but then like the second action, like he's not like trying to flare off of a screen. He's not trying to like, make a second read off of it to try and get open. A lot of times he does kind of stand around, and you just rarely see Stephen Curry, standing around and taking breaks.
Yeah.
Trae Young has it in him to do this. Like he
No
can
doubt.
be a great off-ball point guard. He's an incredible shooter. He has distance out to 35 feet. It's just that he needs to now actualize that in a real way. If they're going to get the most possible value out of Dejounte Murray, I'm fascinated to see it. I think it has a real shot of working. I also love the idea of him with Kevin Huerter. I think both these guys with Huerter is a really great fit. I think that, it seems like they're committed to keeping DeAndre Hunter at this point. DeAndre Hunter, as long as he stays healthy, is a really good fit for this group. I don't know what they're going to do with John Collins.
I like a lot of their talent. I
don't understand why they're trying to move.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would move Clint Capella and try to get another center that can shoot as opposed to trying to move John Collins. But it seems like that's going a different way based off of all of the reporting at the very least.
Yeah.
I don't get it. John Collins is good at basketball. Like that's, I think that people don't recognize that he's gotten way better defensively to where he's not a liability anymore. He actually can hold up. We watched him in a playoff run. He's tough. He's happy to play the role that you need him to play. Like he can shoot versatile. From distance now. He's one of the best rim runners in the league. Like the thing that he doesn't do well is pass, and that's going to come. Like guys figure out how to short roll pass, right? They figure out how to make plays as they gain more experience. The guy keeps getting better and better. I don't know why they're trying to move him, but it just seems like that's a thing that's happening still.
Especially too with Capella. I mean, you just forget Clint Capella's in the league if you're living on the West Coast, and you just never hear about him really. He's not a highlight player anymore. I mean, we know what Clint Capella is. It's a very solid player who deserves
good defender,
a good defender. But it's just he's stuck in the middle. He's not an elite player at center. And I think that some people, especially during his time in Houston, could have extrapolated to that point. I think it would have been foolhardy as evidenced, but I just don't see much more upside in a guy like Clint Capella. And there's certainly value to be had on the trade market for him.
He's an average center that is getting paid $20 million a year. And and like an average starting center, like that's valuable. It's valuable to be able to eat up minutes as a starting center. Like at his peak, he was a borderline all defense center, which is again, really valuable.
He got paid for it.
Would like to see what he looks like another year off of his injury coming into last season.
True.
Maybe he regains some of the explosiveness, but I mean, Collins is the keeper there. You figure out how to find a center who can shoot around John Collins. I think. I don't think you try to, make it work with Clint. Unfortunately, as good as valuable as it is to have a league average starting center.
No doubt. Going back to the Murray Young dichotomy and how interesting that's going to be. I mean, it should be noted that it depends on where you want to lie the blame, but Trae was not good in the postseason. And that could be either a byproduct of him having such a high usage rate throughout the regular season and just in general not being a big dude. I mean, Luka can do that because Luka is going to knock people further than they're going to knock him.
In what postseason? Trae was a killer in the postseason, wasn't he?
Didn't he shoot like 30%?
No. I mean, maybe in one series, but he killed
No, I'm not talking about that season.
You're talking about this year. Okay.
Yeah, I'm talking about when they played Miami and Trae just got beat the up for 4 or 5 games. I mean, it was a bloodbath. And it's not to take anything away from his potential. He's still a young player who is scratching the surface, in my opinion, especially when he gets stronger. But Miami just showed the limitations of having one dude who's that size who has to do everything for that offense to even function. And So you mentioned the off-ball stuff with Trey. It's probably a necessary thing to happen. And it's maybe one of those take one step back and you get to take two steps forward thing. And obviously having Murray there, you already have some shooting there, can open some stuff up for him. Now that it's incumbent upon Trey to take his game to that level, to enjoy that challenge, because it is going to be different. And Murray has to, up his game too. He's a young player still, who can do that, even though he's been traded. Like, people usually see someone get traded and say, well, not a young player anymore. This is his ceiling. Yeah. I don't think that's the case at all. This could really, really work. Like, I want to be clear about that. I think it will be clunky for a while. I question if the coaching staff is the best to put this all together, but if it works, it's going to be really fun. It's going to be really fun. And that excites me, because a team with Trae Young should be really fun to watch. And I did not get those vibes watching Atlanta late in the season, and especially when they played Miami in the postseason, though Miami does that to pretty much everybody. They like to suck the fun out of things.
Yeah. The point about the McMillan coaching staff is real. I have some concerns.
that was a nice way of putting it on my end.
Enough to make this work.
I mean, the best thing that ever happened to Nate McMillan was getting a point guard who would just say, I will run pick and roll every single play. He's like, my game planning is done.
Yeah, Nate's a really good defensive coach, and he really imbued them with the defensive mindset they needed in 2021. Last year was not his best year.
When they finished 28th in they maybe have defense.
A short. Yeah, I would hope that they maybe have a shorter leash this year with some of that stuff, but we'll see. Look, they still have enough assets to where this doesn't have to be their last move, right? I think it's a good swing for Atlanta. I think that it makes sense based off of where they are. I think it makes sense to force some development in Trey, as well as give him a guy next to him that can actualize his skill. We'll see where it goes. I like this deal for both. I just have like a couple of questions, and let's talk about San Antonio real quick, because I still think they should chase DeAndre Ayton.
That's really interesting.
That's where I'm at.
It just doesn't feel like it lines up timeline wise. I know he's young. I know he's still super young.
He's only like 23.
23. Yeah. I mean, what's Murray? 25, 26?
Yeah. No, he's young too. But here's the thing. So if I would tell you, so they're probably, I would imagine they're gonna cut Danilo Gallinari. That doesn't come from inside sources. That's just
no. That's just logic.
Guessing. Yeah. Right, based off of the direction of where the team is going. I have to start saying that now, otherwise I risk getting aggregated. So if I would have told you that they could have traded Dejounte Murray for 3 first-round picks and DeAndre Ayton, because this clears the space for them to give DeAndre Ayton a max cap offer.
Yeah.
That's probably a win for them, right? Like that's a better position than they were in previously. They have like, I don't know. I kind of dig it.
You can make the argument that getting 3 first-round picks for Murray today is a win for them. Doesn't mean it's not a win for Atlanta as well. But I think that most people are of the mindset that this was a necessary move for San Antonio, and that they were smart to get after it a little bit early, because if they were to have maxed out Dejounte Murray, then his trade value drops precipitously. Let someone else have to deal with that, because again, fringe all-star, right? Not like a bona fide every year all-star. He's a guy who, yes, the numbers are awesome on a mediocre to even bad team. This is not a guaranteed hit if you're paying him as much as you possibly can. Let Atlanta figure that out. Let whomever they traded to figure him out. And by trading him early, they, I think, maximize the value for him. So it's a good trade for San Antonio if they knew that he wasn't going to be their guy long term, if he wasn't their franchise player. And I think that's a very valid argument to make, that he's not, that he's a great number 2, perhaps in Atlanta. Obviously, adding DeAndre Ayton to the mix, that would make it a win, because I think you could probably do an Ayton for Murray trade straight up.
Yeah, I mean, I think that those two are relatively close in value, and now you have
somewhere
these 3 first-round pick assets to be able to continue to build their depth. I mean, this is a team that's had success developing guys. It's a team that's had success drafting recently and going back many, many years. I dig it. I get it for San Antonio. I get it for Atlanta. It's a deal that isn't without risk for both sides, but 100%. It's a deal that makes sense for both sides, I think.
And one last thing on this, because I got to throw this in there, because we're always doing the Luka Trae Young comparison. Not we, as in you and I, but it is still a topic of conversation around the NBA. Note what is probably going to happen with the Dallas Mavericks, a team that has now been to the conference finals. They will probably lose, arguably, the number 2 for Luka Doncic this offseason. We'll talk about that next. Meanwhile, Atlanta, who has been to the conference finals as well during Trae Young's thing, is bringing in now a very clear number 2 for him. So something to add to the gumbo, the cosmic gumbo that is that conversation.
Look at this. Look at how good you are at this. Unbelievable. We're transitioning to Jalen Brunson, folks. The Knicks have moved heaven and earth, essentially, to acquire Jalen Brunson. They have moved Nerlens Noel and Alec Burks and Kemba Walker in 2 separate deals to Detroit, essentially for like 6 second-round picks and like a first-round pick that allowed them to acquire Jalen Duren. But the Knicks, I think, didn't actually give up that first-round pick. It's just that they were a mechanism through which Detroit was able to acquire the first. Or the lottery pick that got them Jalen Duren.
Right.
This is so the jury is out for me in terms of a take on Jalen Brunson to the Knicks. It seems like it's going to happen. Tim Cato is reporting Dallas is expecting it. Mark Stein has reported that they're expecting it. Reports are that this is going to happen, right? That lines up with what I'd kind of been told throughout the year, that the family aspect of getting back to the Northeast was something that really appealed to Jalen Brunson. Whether or not he would go there or not, the Knicks would certainly have a very strong pitch, is what I was told. What do you think of moving this much in order to sign Jalen Brunson to a $27 million per year deal? Let's call it 27. Like, I think that they're going to probably try and get creative on the structure, would be my guess. But the Knicks have always done that under Leon Rose. Like, they've gotten very creative. The team options on all of the deals last year. Things tend to come out way after the fact with Knicks deals, where it's like, oh yeah, this isn't nearly as much of an overpay as what we thought it was. So let's keep that in mind with the Knicks. What do you think of this idea of Jalen Brunson going to the Knicks, though, in general, and this being a big move for New York?
I just want to make sure I have this part right. As someone who has followed Tibbs very closely, lifelong Chicago Bulls fan, and then, of course, because I'm a lifelong Chicago Bulls fan, Tibbs is constantly in my thoughts. Taj Gibson is going nowhere, right?
That's the funniest thing in the world to me. They probably could have made this work math-wise without moving Nerlens Noel, just by not doing Taj's team option.
Yep.
And instead,
Tom Thibodeau would never. He would never do it. Not a chance. You can't make him do it. He would have quit on the spot. And the irony of it is. For what it's worth, there is now a mechanism for which they can make all of this like a crazy 3-team sign and trade, where they will still have access to their full mid-level. They will still have full access to one of their other exceptions. I think it might be I can't remember if it's the room. It's not going to be the room if they're using their full mid-level, but it'll be like one of the other exceptions, maybe the biannual exception. And then re-sign Mitchell Robinson on top of that. Like there are a number of things that they can do here now, because they moved Nerlens in this deal as opposed to just releasing Taj. So let's be clear about that. Also, it's just the fucking funniest thing in the world that Taj Gibson's on this roster. Here's the easy way of doing it, and then here's the Tom Thibodeau way of doing it, which is so constant.
Here's the Taj way.
And the thing is, like, I really like the concept of Jalen Brunson as a Tom Thibodeau point guard. Like, I really think that will work, and that it will be very fruitful to the New York Knicks and Jalen Brunson. Like, I do like this marriage. it cannot stand alone, though. Like, this cannot be the Knicks' only move, because, as you said, they moved heaven and earth. And if this was any other market in America, maybe this wouldn't be as big of a deal. But the Knicks are making big moves for like the 10th to 15th best point guard in the NBA. I mean, and that's saying something. This is a guy who kind of got it out of the mud in a little bit, not expected much when he came into the league. Yeah. He's a really good player, and he's going to be, I think, really good for the Knicks. But if the Knicks want to get themselves into any level of contention, or just back to a baseline level of competency where you can expect them to be in the real playoffs year in and year out, it might be a struggle, but they'll get in and year out. I don't think Jalen Brunson and a couple of hopes and prayers about, Emmanuel Quickley or some of the young players on this team is going to get them there. They still need to do something else. And I think that goes beyond just sort of, biannual exception or mid-level, because Jalen Brunson's not going, in my opinion, at least I hope I'm wrong about this, because I really do like watching him play. Like, he's not going to get you to that next level. He's not going to get to that next level. Like, he was a high floor, fairly low ceiling player who's already busted through that ceiling. And I think some people can make the argument of, oh, he'll just keep going. He's going to have a good year. It's going to look like good money, in my opinion. Again, all that does is give the Knicks a competent point guard. They need way more than that to really compete in the Eastern Conference. And I appreciate that, they're bold about it, that they had their guy. I do think that there's some value to the notion of it's a very familial thing with, the Rose family and everything going on with Jalen. Like, he's truly wants to be there. But, like, again, we're talking about Jalen Brunson, man.
To follow on that. So Leon Rose, his first client was Rick Brunson, who is Jalen's father. Yeah. Very long-term connection there in terms of like the families. They've known each other for a long time.
Held Jalen within like 5 days of him being born. Like, they're extremely close.
I believe. I believe that Leon's son is on Jalen Rose's paper, or Jalen Brunson. I'm sorry, not Jalen Rose. Jalen Brunson's. You understand, Jalen? We got Jalen Brunson. We got Leon Rose. We don't have. At some point, Jalen Rose is going to talk about this. Like, we've got too much going on. But like, I think his name is actually Sam Rose is on Jalen Brunson's paperwork in terms of agency representation.
Right.
So
a little incestual, which allowed this to happen. I mean, legitimately. I mean, it makes the tampering real.
Yeah. I like the idea of getting Jalen Brunson to New York. I think Jalen Brunson's a great player. I think that, like, we often, as a basketball community, underrate these guys who are fucking basketball geniuses, and Jalen Brunson is a basketball genius. Like, there's not another, the way that he thinks the game is on another level. Mm-hmm. I just think that there probably has to be another move. There probably has to be another move here, is my thing. Like, be it moving Julius Randle. Like, here's the weird thing about this too. Like, all of Jalen Brunson, RJ Barrett, Julius Randle, like, everyone's like, oh, cool, like the 3 lefty lineup. The thing about that is, though, that all 3 of these guys are very left-hand dominant and need the ball typically on the right side of the court to get downhill on the move going to the left. And I wonder if there's like a bit of an overlap there in terms of just the way that they're able to operate in the same spaces, and like
they're all going to be running into each other.
Spaces.
Yeah,
it could be that. Yeah, like that actually worries me a little bit with this trio. I really like RJ Barrett. Like, I think RJ is going to be a top 3 guy on a really, really good team. Like, I think RJ is going to be a borderline all-star. I think that Jalen will help to actualize RJ on the offensive end for sure. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm actually in on the idea of that, despite the like left-hand dominance idea.
If it's just those 2,
the one that doesn't fit to me is Julius Randle, and I don't know what they're going to do with him. That's what I'd be probably looking to move Julius Randle. If I was them, maybe that's their other shoe, is that they're going to try and move Julius. here.
Who's interested in Julius Randle
Yeah.
at the money he's at?
I don't really have an answer to that. It's kind of what I'm struggling with. So,
Yeah.
I look, and on some level, I think if you're the Knicks, you probably do just sign Jalen Brunson, you extend RJ Barrett, and you then, continue down this road of trying to get a star, right? Like you have all these extra assets. You traded, the 11th overall pick for 3 first-round picks from the Oklahoma City Thunder. You have this extra Dallas pick still. You have your picks. Like there are a lot of avenues that could open up down the road, even if there isn't a star available right now. There are avenues that could open up down the road that could make this look different in hindsight. I don't even want to say it looks bad because I don't know that
it doesn't look bad.
I don't think I'm quite as low on this as everyone else seems to be. I don't know that I love it.
It's just not sexy. There's nothing sexy about bringing in Jalen Brunson. He doesn't sell jerseys, man. It's not anything like what the Nets did, but that might be a benefit. That might be more of a feature than a bug. Like what the Nets are doing
really
hasn't worked yet. So you have Tom Thibodeau as your head coach. You're going to be winning on effort and grit and probably burning dudes out. There's only so many point guards that can actually do that, what Tom Thibodeau wants them to do in the league.
Yeah.
Jalen Brunson is unquestionably one of them. So it's a great move for the Knicks in that regard. It just doesn't win the PR game. And it's not ultimately what needs to be done. It can't be it for them. And I'm really glad that you brought up the 3 lefties thing because, again, I have no idea what you do with Julius Randle. And I think that there's a lot of that Julius Randle aftermath that's sort of seeping into this where, okay, now the Knicks are all in on Jalen Brunson, like this, again, moving heaven and earth to get him. Well, they gave all the money to Julius Randle after 1 year. Jalen Brunson's breakout year was been 1 year, really. I know it's been developing here for a minute, but he really came through 1 year. There's not a lot of faith in the Rose administration.
Where he's where he's a $27 million player, it's been 1 year. For sure.
Totally. So I understand Knicks fans who are starving for a true superstar. One, they're not getting it, even though he's going to be a damn good player for them. And two, there's not a lot of faith in, the fact that the way that the Knicks have done business up until this point where they've overpaid overachievers. And you can look at Jalen Brunson. I don't think this is correct, but you can look at Jalen Brunson and say, here we go again. So they need to do something else.
Yeah.
And then the issue is it's still the Knicks. It's still, the White Plains Knicks. And I don't know who's deeply interested outside of Donovan Mitchell of going in. And I don't know if Donovan Mitchell changes everything for them either.
Yeah, and it seems like Donovan isn't available, first and foremost as well.
He also is under contract by the Utah Jazz.
Yeah, so I think that'd be cool. Go get Donovan Mitchell. That'd be great. Yeah. But on some level, shouldn't we just be we've been talking about the Knicks as a free agency destination that people don't want to go to for years.
Yeah.
They just got look, say whatever you want to say about Jalen Brunson. They just got the guy that everyone wanted to get. I mean,
college basketball recruiting. They had to do put the dad on staff, put the cousin in the administration office. I mean, they had to go full court press, on top of the duffel bag in the embassy suites. It's again for Jalen Brunson, they're not even getting a true 5-star. And again, I think it's going to work because of the head coach, but is Jalen Brunson going to save Tom Thibodeau's job in 18 months? I don't know. It just feels it just feels like if this is as high as it gets, cool, you're the 6th seed. I
think that I'm just I don't think that this is their last move. I think that they're gearing up for something else. I think that they see Jalen as the perfect number 2, basically, and they have the opportunity to sign the number 2. So why not take that now? And we have all these assets. We're going to sign Mitchell Robinson again as a contract that we can move in a deal. We're going to sign X, Y, and Z, right? Let's get the number 2 while we can get the number 2, and then we'll figure out the number 1 later, right? And I don't hate it. I'm sorry.
If this was any team other than the Knicks, it would be a much more sane play. It would just feel better.
I love like everyone who's like shitting on this deal. Like Seth Partnow is like, wait, how did Jalen Brunson get this much money? And I love Seth, and I don't even think he's like wrong
No, he's
necessarily.
not wrong.
I just also kind of want to go, you know what? Like, this is the Knicks. Jalen Brunson is a good like second or third option on a like playoff team. We literally just saw it. And while we saw it with, maybe one of the three best players in the league, maybe you can slide him back into being number 3 option. RJ can slide up into being a number 2 at some point, which I think is what their hope is.
Yeah. I think
I don't know. I'm fine with this for Dallas.
It feels very Charlotte. It feels very Charlotte Hornets. Like that's the problem. Like this is just what like the Charlotte Hornets do. And it's like there's nothing wrong with that because the Charlotte Hornets aren't a perennial, contender. They're not playing at Madison Square Garden. And it's just you have to match your market. And the Knicks they just don't match the market. And until they do, it's going to be held against them, even when they make a good deal like this one. Were you going to ask about the Mavericks? Yeah. Because I don't know what the hell they do. I don't know what the hell the Mavericks.
So
this is a problem.
So like there's been a couple reports that like Nico Harrison has seen this coming for a little while, right? Like I think Tim Cato said that like it's been the expectation for a while. I would expect that it's been the expectation since the trade deadline when they purposely acquired Spencer Dinwiddie as potential insurance for this, right? I mean, like that's
Conference
like I think they wanted to
like it was done. Like it wasn't even a conversation about maybe they keep him. They're like they're going to offer him the bag, and the Knicks are going to offer him the bag, and he's going to go to New York.
Look, I'd kind of been told that it was unlike. Look, here's the thing. So on the show I did with Danny LaRue, I mentioned that, like, look, I didn't think that Jalen Brunson was staying. I know that it was right after the playoffs, and I know that it was right after everyone had kind of said that, but like I kind of even the way that I phrased things there kind of tried to make it so Mavs fans were prepped for him leaving.
You buttered the pan.
But I wasn't sure because I'd kind of also been told that the playoffs like really made like a real chance at reconsideration, right? Like, hey, we have this great thing going. We just made the conference finals. Like maybe I don't think it was a surefire done deal thing that he was leaving, after the playoffs. I thought he was leaving before that, but I also think that the playoffs might have changed some things. It has nothing to do with tampering. It has nothing to do with like anything like that. It's just, family is good. Like family's important, like people want to be back like around the areas that they're from. And it's cool.
Some guys
like,
some guys want to get as far away from it as possible. Obviously it's a good situation with the Knicks when you think about all the connections and if nothing else, Jalen Brunson knows the New York Knicks are going to take care of him and his family. That's a big deal.
Right. Well, and I remember saying this on the show right after it happened, but like, do you remember those headlines when the, World Wide Wes and Leon Rose and Julius Randle all showed up courtside for the Jazz Mavs series?
Yeah.
I kind of made the point that I don't think that was for Donovan Mitchell. Like, I think that it was good to be there for Donovan.
Right.
I think it was more for Julius or for Jalen Brunson in terms of why they were there. And I've said that before on the show. Maybe I'm right. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
They got him now.
But regardless, I think that Dallas kind of prepped for this eventuality by acquiring Spencer Dinwiddie at the offseason. I think that deal was more about ending the Kristaps era, but I also think that they wanted some insurance in case this was going to happen. I don't know what they do from here. I think that they just kind of have to rock with what they got right now and then kind of let this play out over the next couple of years whenever they can clear some flexibility again.
Yeah. I mean, they're going to be asking so much more out of Luka, and I know he's got it in him, but man, it's a lot to ask. And he got him through 2 rounds of the playoffs, but man, Brunson was so good in the playoffs. He was so good. And as much as Dinwiddie had his moments, there was a clear hierarchy there. It was a 1, 2, and a 3, and Spencer Dinwiddie was a hell of a 3. All of them playing the
Yeah.
same position, of course, because why the hell would you diversify? But it's like,
well, and because Tim Hardaway was out is important to
true,
note as well.
true,
Like,
very true.
they paid Tim Hardaway a lot of money, and he was not there. And you can see a world where a Luka Doncic, Spencer Dinwiddie, Tim Hardaway backcourt functions well.
Yeah.
It's losing Jalen Brunson. That's terrible, and Jalen's really good. But you can see a world where this functions well, and I think it's important to note Tim Hardaway Jr. will be back next year.
They're still going to be a playoff team. Luka's still going to be an MVP contender of the highest caliber. They're just not a team that's going to have anyone say that they're going to be playing for a championship at any point during the month of May. There will be in the tournament. They might even win a round, but no one is going to be as they were, and with plenty of justification at the moment, before the Western Conference Finals, saying Mavs in 6. No one's going to be predicting in any way, shape, or form that the Dallas Mavericks are going to be playing against an Eastern Conference champion.
And I was real dumb. I said Mavs in 6. I thought the Mavs were going to win that series. I'm a fucking moron. But like,
it's the beauty
I'm excited.
Of predictions.
Like, I was excited.
It's not even a knock on the predictions. It's just they had made so many threes, and the wings had looked so good.
Yeah.
But the matchups were perfect for them in the first 2 rounds. And the second Andrew Wiggins decided, like, oh shit, I'm better than these dudes. It was over. It was kaput. And then of course, Steph. But that's relitigating the past. It's just a shame. I mean, it's almost, again, as I mentioned earlier, like the Hawks took that step back this past year after going to the conference final. Like Dallas, I think, is inevitably going to take that step back just because they won't have their clear number 2. And Tim Hardaway Jr., great. And it's a little bit more diversification. Great point by you. But like, come on now. You're running a 5-out system. It's going to win you some games. They're going to lose some games off of it. They're going to get like between 47 and probably about 47 wins. They'll be fine, but they're not getting over any hump for a minute or two. And with the beating Luka's going to take, we're going to be having an interesting conversation about them this time next year, I imagine.
Yeah, I mean, it's just going to be a lot more on ball. Like they're going to need a lot from Spencer Dinwiddie to be able to carry some of the load for Luka.
Yeah,
maybe Spencer can bring it back a little bit. I hope he can, because watching Spencer with Brooklyn was really fun.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah. That'd be great. But you're also betting on Spencer Dinwiddie's legs. That's a big bet.
Yeah, it is. It's tough. Okay, let's go to Kyrie. So, full disclosure, I did not live through the media cycle with Kyrie that occurred on Monday. Apparently,
beautiful.
I went to bed.
Yep.
I woke up. Kyrie had opted in. I was like, okay, cool. And then I find out, 10 minutes later that it had been a thing throughout the day where Kyrie had been floating. There'd been things floated and there'd been reports, sources, craziness. He's taken the taxpayer mid-level for the Lakers. He's going to try and orchestrate a trade. Like,
he was definitely trying to orchestrate a trade. No one wanted him. No one wanted him, Sam. That's rough.
So here's the thing with Kyrie. Kyrie's really fucking good.
Yes, he is.
Kyrie, say whatever you want about
one of the true great players in this league.
Yeah.
Like unquestioned upper echelon. Yep.
And he's been incredible since he's been in Brooklyn when he's been on the court.
And that's the big point there.
I don't know. The whole situation is dumbfounding to me. I don't know what to make of any of it. I don't know how to handle it. I'm excited for this Brooklyn team, assuming it stays together. I also understand if I was another organization, given all of the craziness, when he tweeted the thing about, having to change, to be brave or whatever. The only thing I could think of was the Eric Andre GIF where, but the Eric Andre GIF where he's like, how could you say something so controversial yet so brave?
Exactly right.
It's just I mean, the self-awareness is not there. I actually think that Kyrie's heart is in the right place. Weirdly,
Yeah.
like
I don't think he has
I really
malice.
do. I just
Yeah.
no, I just think that it manifests itself in complicated ways.
No, he's just a weird cat, man. We can just say he's a different cat and that we don't understand it, and he
Yeah.
likes that.
Yeah, like I think he likes that we don't understand him, and I respect that on some level. Like he wants to live his life as well. Like I think that he is not a fan of like the intrusiveness of media, and I respect that too. Like
Totally get that.
totally
Yep.
get it.
Fair enough.
Everyone
Maybe don't leak all your
please go
shit to
get
Shams,
vaccinated
but you
as
know,
well.
yeah, makes
Yeah, I
sense.
mean that's a little bit weird. But like please like go get vaccinated. Like I disagree with Kyrie on that point very
Yeah,
strongly.
yeah.
I think the city of New York very clearly disagreed with Kyrie strongly on that point.
Brooklyn Nets did until they didn't.
But it's yeah, it's theoretically not an issue this year. Like he's going to be
No,
available to play. New York
yes,
has changed its guidelines. So
yeah,
he's going
that's
to
not a thing.
play and he's going to be really fucking good. Like he's
Well,
going to be really good this year again, and we're going to get to see him play with KD, which is really fun. And like we'll talk about the rest of the roster in a second, but like him and Kevin Durant, your best friend, like this combo is amazing, and I couldn't be more excited to see them play together, like on a longer term basis. Finally,
well, longer term is anything more than what's already existed, but let's not like pretend as if this is going to just go to a whole new level of like 75 games a year. Kevin Durant is going into what 16th season in the NBA and is a man who had an Achilles injury. Doesn't mean he's not a brilliant basketball player, arguably the greatest scorer we've ever seen in the league, and that he still doesn't have buckets for days. But when we were, extrapolating about what happens if they break up the Nets, there were some serious hypotheticals that had to be asked about Kevin Durant and his ability to sort of, get through the end of the contract. Like, what kind of value is there for a player at that juncture, even though he is clearly one of the best bucket getters still in the league, and again, of all time? We're saying, oh, Kyrie Irving is, going to be available this year because of, the vaccine stuff isn't a thing anymore. Yeah, but that doesn't mean he hasn't been an injury-prone player as well throughout his career. And that doesn't mean that he doesn't play a style of basketball that has, I think, accentuated that injury prone. Maybe it's a chicken and an egg situation there, but like the dude is still required to be at his highest level, someone who is smaller than everybody else and going into the lane and doing the crazy shit that he can do that no one else, I think, can do. But you got to be pretty close to the hoop to do it.
yeah.
And you're bouncing off the 7-footers. You're bouncing off of, dudes with big shoulders who are looking to inflict a little bit of pain. And he's been in the league for a long time because even though he's a young guy by standards, I mean, you're seeing the gray showing up in the beard and in the afro. He's been in the NBA since he was 19 years old. He's had a lot of minutes because he's played a lot of playoff minutes. Same with Kevin Durant. So I hope that it works out because aesthetically speaking, those two offensively, I don't know if there's, outside of maybe Curry, I don't know if there's anybody better than those two, not even collectively. Those two are the most fun offensive players in the league to watch, at least for me.
Yeah.
I mean, when Kyrie is cooking,
I honestly love watching them.
Yeah, it is special. And Kevin Durant is just he makes the inevitable seem so cool. Like, and there's a real cool, as unchill as he is online, he is that chill on the basketball court, and it's special to watch both of those guys. But that doesn't mean that it's just now going to magically work out because they were on the court in the playoffs and they still got smoked by the Celtics. Like smoked, and Kevin Durant looked mortal.
See, like I'm just even someone like I don't care about Kevin's like make fun of people. I don't care. Like,
oh no, he's very good at it. He's very good. I've told him
like,
this a million times. He is much better at the internet than I will ever be. He is at most, if not all things. He's great at it. I'm just saying.
Yeah,
he is a smooth operator when he is on the court, man. Nobody
unbelievable
gets him out of it. And it's like, I hope it works because it would be, even though it's been really fun for the jokes, let's be real, it would be kind of tragic in a maybe you get a sick pleasure out of this one. I think most people would, but like there is some tragedy to two players of this caliber, hell, three when you include James Harden, three players of the highest possible caliber in the league getting together. And for that, they have one series win in 3 years. I understand that
it's a shame.
Circumstances, but like you had 3 of the 10 best players in the NBA without question, not even having to fudge the numbers, and you've won one playoff series with all the money in the world.
Yeah.
That's I hope that changes just for the sake of this experiment.
No, I agree. I really want them to have success. And the other part of this is Ben Simmons. And
oh shit, I forgot about him.
I don't know what to expect out of Ben.
Wouldn't it be great if Ben Simmons was just like bitching? Like if he just came out and was just like,
oh, it'd be great.
Because he can fulfill so much of what they need.
Yeah. Like if this works, it's going to work incredibly well. Like they have Joe Harris, who's going to space the floor for all these guys. Yep. They have Seth Curry, who's going to space the floor for all these guys. I think they need to go out and get another defender, but they're probably going to sign Nick Claxton, it seems like. I think I saw a report like that earlier today. Like they have a lot of really interesting pieces. I would love to see them, try and go out and take some flyers on 3-and-D guys. Like I think that could be fun for them.
It's not a flyer when Ben Simmons desperately is needed.
But like Ben Simmons is the one. Like that really, like his ability, if he's willing to play as a big, as opposed to a point guard, which I would hope that he
spot
is.
4. Yeah.
Like not even run him in ball screens and have him be the short roll safety valve for when guys try to put 2 on the ball with Kyrie. You're going to create a ton of mismatch advantage situations on the other side for KD and Kyrie. Like there's a lot that can really work there. Both of KD and Kyrie can really shoot. They're going to open the floor for Ben, especially in lineups when Joe Harris and Seth Curry are out there and you have to stay attached to their hip because they're unbelievable shooters. If this works, it's going to work not just like good, it's going to work exceptionally well. It's just that all 3 of these guys are wild cards in one way or another. Kyrie for a number of reasons. Kevin Durant has been hurt the last couple of years, even beyond the Achilles injury. Ben Simmons hasn't played basketball in a year. Like if it works, it's going to be incredibly fun. And I really want to see it. I have no idea if it's going to work.
Maybe now with expectations having sort of catered down, maybe that opens up everything just in like a weird karmic way. It should also be noted that like the depth on this team is rough. It is. Wasn't very good last year.
Yeah. Patty Mills just opted out.
Yeah, they better get him back. I mean, they got the money because the second unit, yes, you'll have Simmons running it or Kyrie running it. You'll always have a great player on the floor. Yeah. There's no question about that. But boy, one great player can only take you so far in this league if you got a bunch of dudes on the minimum and half of them aren't living up to that standard.
Well, and I think they're hoping that Cam Thomas takes a step. I think they're hoping Kessler Edwards takes a step. I think they're hoping for some of their young guys. Plus, they're hoping that Joe Harris will be healthy. Seth Curry will be healthy. Bring back Nick Claxton. I don't know what they're going to do with Bruce Brown necessarily. I would try to re-sign him, but I don't know if they're going to or not.
Yeah,
he's
a good player.
It's a big tax bill. I mean, at the end of the day, like pay the tax. But I understand that their tax level is now prohibitive, obviously. I don't know. It's a weird deal.
You've made it this far. You've made it this far. Pay the money because listen, if it doesn't work this upcoming season, now Kyrie's an unrestricted free agent. Kevin is in the final 2 years of his deal. I don't even know if Ben Simmons' contract will even, they might force majeure it at some point. I mean, it doesn't.
They're not force majeuring his contract. Do not aggregate that. That's not a serious point.
I'm just saying I still have to get Nets jokes in here somehow after we've been praising them. And it's just to say that it's all in. It's got to be all in this year. And yes, the tax is prohibitive. And yes, they haven't won diddly squat. And it's, yes, Jalen Brunson's going to be filling up the Garden every night and taking even more of a market share for the New York Knicks because, Tibbs' ball is back. But Dan, if you're going to do it right, Josiah. Like, just do it. and pay for good players who can make your team go 1 through 9, 1 through 10, because you're going to need that depth in the regular season, and you're sure as hell going to need it in the postseason, just because every minute is so vital. Make sure you have a deep enough team. And, I do appreciate that the Nets can develop players. I do appreciate that the Nets have a good eye for talent, I think, in the front office. But, less Blake Griffin, more Bruce Brown. And if that's going to cost you a little bit more, it costs you a little bit more. But, again, as you were noting, and I agree, they're close. I mean, a lot of shit's got to go right. But, it's in no way out of the realm of possibility. This is still a team that has to be considered of the highest echelon in the league. And I don't even know if everything has to go right.
They're closer than people think.
I think people were so fast to
the general consensus is.
People were so fast. I don't blame anybody for being part of it. This is just the natural arc of narrative. It was just going to be shit, Nets ruined the league. It was going to work automatically, even with Kevin not there. And when it didn't, it had to reverse just as fast. And it's that's never been the case, much like their jerseys, shade of gray. And, man, they are. Simmons is a better player for this team, if actualized, than James Harden would be, just because of what he can bring on the defensive side. Is it as fun? Probably not. But there's not a redundancy there in any way, shape, or form, because he is one of one. Kevin Durant needs to get Ben Simmons on a Zoom or in some house in LA, and instead of video games, they can just watch Draymond Green short roll clips all day, every day, and you turn Ben Simmons into Draymond Green, fully actual, beyond any realm of human possibility, the ultimate versatile five defensive positions guy, who is just a beast, as you noted in the pick and roll. Even though he can't shoot a lick, just that floater game, getting to the cup, great passer. He is a great passer from all that point guard play. He could be really, really special on top of just clamping down 4 dudes at the same time. It'd be really fun. I really hope that we see that, because, well, shit, I like good basketball, and they could play some of the best in the league easily if those 3 guys are clicking.
Yeah, I agree. Let's go to the guy that the Nets traded for Ben Simmons, James Harden.
Yeah.
Now. James Harden is opting out of his $47 million a year. And it looks like he's going to take less from Philadelphia to help the team. They have some real financial flexibility that they can work. Mm-hmm. They can use their full taxpayer mid-level exception now that, according to Keith Pompey with the Philly Inquirer, if I remember his paper correctly, Keith says that they're in the mix to sign PJ Tucker, and that's going to be the guy they bring. PJ Tucker is an old Daryl Morey favorite. I think he makes some sense here. As a 4-man that can take on tough assignments in the playoffs. Looks like they're considering moving Matisse Thybulle. I agree with that, but I've always been kind of clear that I value Matisse a little bit less than others do. As fun as he is, and as much as I appreciate his Australian acceptance as I do. I mean, look, you've got James Harden, you've got Joel Embiid, you've got Tyrese Maxey, you've got Tobias Harris, you're going to bring in PJ Tucker.
Got Melton.
You have D'Anthony Melton now, who's going to be a valuable bench player.
You love D'Anthony Melton. That's one of your guys.
This works for me. Their off season so far works for me, I guess.
Yeah. No, it's good.
First, and honestly, kudos to James Harden for taking less. This has always been, he's always been the guy that, gets all the shit for being selfish and all that stuff. Shout out James Harden for taking less. We'll see if it works, but he deserves credit for being willing to do that. He's made $300 million or whatever, and he cares about winning. If you're going to say that you care about winning, this is how you do it.
I mean, it's not a fully altruistic act. I do believe it when it's hey, it's about winning, this and that. But the way that James Harden played down the stretch, he might also know that this is the last chance to lock in a long-term big-time payday. And you have to turn down $47 million, but just like Russell Westbrook opting into his $47 million, Russ knows there's no big contract coming down the pipeline. That's the last time $47 million and Russell Westbrook are going to be connected. Whereas with James Harden, he can still get very good money, like not the maximum, but right there, second tier from the Philadelphia 76ers, who I'm sure he holds. We know his relationship with Daryl. We know how Daryl views him. This was always going to work out in Philadelphia, in my estimation. And also, Philadelphia went and got him. Philadelphia saved his ass from whatever was happening over there in Brooklyn in a situation that he didn't want to show up to anymore. And Philadelphia made that easy for him. The Rockets thing dragged out. It was painful. It was awkward. It was sad. The Sixers did Harden such a solid in their move by tossing in a little bit more than probably they had they really pressed the Nets. This is they're even. And I think it works out for everybody. Good on James Harden. He's going to get, another nice, massive check. He gets the term, which I think is probably more important than the short term higher money. The Sixers put themselves in a better position to win. They got a hell of an operation there already in place. I think that they could augment, because that's really all they need to do. Question is if James Harden, and I know that the reports are already now coming out, we'll see what actually happens by the time we get to September and October in training camp. But if James Harden wants to be fully committed to the operation, if James Harden wants to get back into, I'm going to go win MVP mode, James Harden, which he won't be doing in Philadelphia because the MVP is Joel Embiid on that team, but like that kind of shape, that kind of callousness that he can build up for the regular season. Like if he's ready to go, if he's going to go full God mode James Harden this season, which requires him to put in crazy work in the summer to prepare his body for 100+ games throughout the regular season and postseason, now the Sixers are in a different tier. And good on everybody. Yeah. It sounds like a situation that, let's not forget, not that long ago was crazy toxic. Like Philly is a mess. Shit. Think about all the stuff that Joel Embiid has just said in the last year about his own teammates in press conferences. Now, we love Joel because he tells the truth, but like, stuff like, I don't think about that man, or we thought we were getting the Houston James Harden, like all that. There's always going to be even, a little bit. You give an inch to the Philadelphia media, they're going to take a mile. This feels like everything is on really good footing. I think that the Sixers are going to be an improved team year over year in that Eastern Conference. Let's boogie. Let's play. Let's see if Joel can stay healthy, because if he does, they might be the team to beat.
I'm in. I'd still take Milwaukee over them because I'm a big believer in Giannis and Chris and Drew, and Chris was out, but Philly is up there. Like Philly is certainly within the top 2 or 3, along with Miami and whatever you think of Chicago moving forward.
Boston, of course.
I don't know what to do with them. Boston obviously made the finals this year, and Boston's going to be another potential top 3 team in the East. But I love it. I love where they're headed. I think this was a big stabilization offseason for Philly in a way that if you've followed the Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast over the years, there have not been many of these.
No.
And
it's been great for the content, like not great for the health.
This is one where there should at least be a modicum of health for Mike Levin and Spike Eskin. God love them. Okay. Two or three smaller deals here. John Wall to the Clippers. Looks like he's going to get his buyout from Houston. Going to go sign with LA. Great. Cool. Sounds good to me. I dig it.
I'm really impressed with how much money the Clippers are willing to spend. Like Steve Ballmer has to be held up as like this is the dude you want to own your team, because they're not getting John Wall on the minimum. They're getting John Wall on the mid-level exception. Like that $4 or $5 million.
The mini mid-level.
A mini mid-level. And that's what Wall gave back to Houston to get out of the deal. So he'll be made whole. Good on John Wall, because, hey, man, if you've been through the injuries he has, someone's going to give you that kind of money. Do not say no. But listen, Reggie Jackson can only take a team so far. I think the Clippers, maybe not anymore because of this Wall spike, and they did a great job in re-signing Zubac on a very reasonable deal for the caliber of player he is. They're
Yeah.
they might.
And by the way,
We got to
the
see
other
some
thing
stuff,
with
but
that
they could
is
be the
too.
favorites. Yeah.
The other thing with that is too on the Zubats deal, it speaks again to Steve Ballmer. Like they could
Totally.
have had Zubac this year for $7.5 million and been cool with it.
Mhm.
And that's not what they're doing. They're paying him
No.
more. They're, knocking him up a little bit in terms of money.
Dude's
So
building
yeah,
a
no,
new arena,
100%. Like
courts all over LA. He's paying Kawhi to do effectively nothing for the Los Angeles Clippers for a couple of years, giving him new contracts. Paul George, and now this John Wall thing, paying him more than really you had to if you pressed him. Like they're in it. They're in it to win a championship, and they got as good of a shot as anybody.
re-signing Nick Batum as well, looks
True.
like, for
Big
$10
one.
million a year.
Yeah. Right.
Like
they could have gone cheap.
They're spending.
Good on them.
Yeah. I think that if we're gonna shit on owners, which I'm about to do here in a second, with this next deal we're going to talk about, I think we need to praise good owners that are willing to spend. Steve Ballmer's willing to spend. Good for him.
Yeah.
Denver.
Can you explain
so Denver
this
trades?
To me? Like what the fuck?
I can. So Denver trades Monte Morris and Will Barton for Kentavious Caldwell-Pope and Ish Smith. So I think that they save a bunch of money here. This gets them this actually gets them underneath the tax, and it gets them to the point where I think like with one more minor move, they can actually use their mid-level exception at this point. Okay. I think that what they're envisioning is that Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is a better fit for them as a 3-and-D defensive player next to Jamal Murray, next to Michael Porter Jr., at the 2 than Will Barton is. Will Barton did not have a great year this year.
No.
I think that it's important to note that his idealized fit is not exactly what this role is. Like he's a little bit better as like a 6th man as opposed to being, a 5th starter, right? Like he can handle the ball. He can do a lot of different things, right? On top of that, like Will Barton's from Baltimore, like he's going home. Like I think that honestly, Denver kind of made right by him a little bit in this, good. Like sending him home to an area that he's excited about.
Yeah.
The part of this I don't really get is Monte Morris and trading him for Ish Smith. I guess they might be envisioning this more as Will Barton for Ish Smith and then Monte Morris for KCP. Just in terms of the value adds, I still think they come out a little bit worse here, but ultimately this is about money and they're trying to save money here. And it is now a real, I know that they're paying 3 max deals with Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr., but we now have a pattern of this Denver ownership group trying to avoid the tax when they can, not being willing to pony up to keep one of the 5 best executives in the NBA in Tim Connolly, not being willing to just pay the tax to keep the guys that you have. The thing that Tim Connolly, when he was there, he always preached culture, keeping the guys that were there with you, keeping the guys that built this up with you. That's the way that they wanted to build their team. And I don't know. This seems like a departure from that. And I don't know that I blame Calvin Booth for it. I think it's more how much is ownership willing to spend on this roster? And maybe they want some more certainty on how Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. are going to come back before going deep into the tax. But at some point you got to spend. You got to spend to win in the NBA. And I feel bad for Nikola Jokic that I have questions on this ownership group now.
You can pass it off as fit. I do think that there's an argument to be made that you can reasonably, with some effort, say, oh, this is a better fit for the Denver Nuggets. And with Washington really
you can.
You can.
Yeah.
But we know that's not the ideal reason. What kills me is Stan Kroenke, who owns the team, just won the Stanley Cup with his hockey team, the Avalanche, just won the Super Bowl with his football team, the Rams. So we get to blame Arsenal for this, which makes me very happy.
How did I know this was going? How did I know that was happening? Like I
Just hate
should
Ar-
I should have seen that coming from a mile away, and I didn't.
I just hate
And that's
Arsenal.
my fault.
I'm not even a Tottenham fan. I'm a Liverpool fan. I just hate Arsenal. I don't know why. I hate Arsenal
That's
even
my
more than I
fault.
love Liverpool sometimes. Listen,
For the Wizards,
this
look,
team entirely. Can we talk about the Nuggets here for a half second? Though you're right about Murray,
yeah,
but
go for
like
it.
this team is so reliant on Michael Porter Jr., and that is a really scary sentence.
This is the Missouri in you talking.
Yeah, I got experience. I got the cred.
This is the no, but look, Michael Porter Jr. is a guy that had injury questions coming into the NBA. He obviously had the back injury this past year that was concerning. I have some concerns on trusting Michael Porter Jr. to stay healthy. I think that's a completely reasonable take.
Even if he plays, he is so abysmal on the defensive side of the court. And this NBA is about, if we had to narrow it down to one position, it's two-way wings, guys who can get it done on both ends of the court. And he can really get it done on one end of the court, man. And then he gives it all the way up. I mean, if he even has a halfway shitty game offensively, he's unplayable. He's unplayable. And that's a real problem.
But
I would hope that it changes.
Like, it's fixable. That's the thing. He's so talented that it's fixable. And he needs to be willing to lock in and do that. And I hope he is. Like I
would
genuinely
hope
he is. Because if he's not, if he's not, Denver is losing its. This is the real problem that I have with this deal beyond the ownership thing. Denver is losing its margin for error in terms of its creation. It has moved now Monte Morris and Will Barton, both of whom are strong creators. I know they have Bones Highland. I know they just drafted Peyton Watson that they're hoping can pick up the slack there in that regard a couple years down the road. You know, I know they just drafted Christian Brown. Like, they're losing their margin for error this year in terms of shot creation, in terms of guys who can make life easier for Nikola Jokic at times. If Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr., both of whom are coming off of long-term injuries, play fewer games or don't stay healthy this year, or something goes wrong, you're losing your margin for error. And I don't love that. I think that is a mistake given the situation that they're in.
It's very Portland-esque. It feels very Portland-like after the 2019 season, where it's just like they just you lose a little bit.
You know what though? Paul Allen paid the tax. Paul Allen paid the tax like crazy.
Yeah. And then he died. The trust didn't.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you have any other exciting things like the Dante DiVincenzo option was declined, or the qualifying offer was not extended? That's a bit surprising, right?
What is does Sacramento have like a move that they imagine is going to happen? And if so, what fairy tale world do they live in? Are they going to get Julius Randle? Can they get two ball dominant fours in a league where the four shouldn't exist? Is that the play? Like, what the hell is Sacramento doing? I don't get them. They're very frustrating.
Yeah. To me, this says that it's possible his injuries are a little bit worse than you would think. I don't know that. This is not me reporting that, but like,
no. Yeah, that's fair speculation.
The case.
Yeah.
Because now Milwaukee has moved off of him as a guy that they really could have used last year. Sacramento has moved off of him.
Yeah.
Maybe not. The other one that is surprising to me on a little bit of a level, not like a major level. According to Kobe Price from the Orlando Sentinel, the Orlando Magic are not going to tender a qualifying offer to Mo Bamba. So Mo Bamba is an unrestricted free agent. That, I would imagine, is simply that Mo Bamba's qualifying offer is enormous.
Yeah.
If I was another team, if I needed a center, I would be targeting Mo. Mo had an interesting year last year. He needs to continue to improve as a shooter, but his rim protection and shooting potential is very interesting to me. Like, for instance, if I was Atlanta or if I was Miami, I would be exploring avenues to take a look at potentially getting him. The reason I say Atlanta is because the idea of Mo Bamba, whether or not that's actualized yet or not. And I think Mo is a really interesting player and had a really good year this year that helped him actualize some of that potential. He is the kind of guy that I think works really well with John Collins, and that would allow you to keep John Collins. You don't have to use Mo as like a pick and pop big. You can use him as like a floor spacing, corner 3-point shooter, and then use him as your drop coverage big. You have John Collins kind of on the backside. John has improved in terms of positional defense, situational defense. Then maybe you can move Clint Capella for another offer. You have Onyeka Okongwu already, who I think they're fans of, and they would like to potentially open up some playing time for. That's interesting to me. Miami, I've seen a report already here. Miami might have interest in Mo Bamba. I mean, good God, don't give Miami Mo Bamba. Like,
that'd be terrible.
That's the kind of thing that's the kind of thing where we all look at it in a year's time and go, oh, how did Miami get this guy who's averaging like 15 points and 3 blocks a game?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And what kind of payday do you think Mo Bamba would get? Because you could also, I know there's increasing complications. Like I could see it like a Nerlens Noel where he has to sort of take a really low offer on kind of 1 year. It's like a bet on himself situation. I don't know if it's gotten to that point with Mo just yet, but when you keep saying like potential and possibilities, like that's tantalizing. But with so few teams actually with salary cap space, I mean, is someone going to want to use a mid-level, even the mini mid-level or something like that on a Mo Bamba? I don't know if the market's going to be that robust.
Here's an interesting one. Should Phoenix chase him?
Interesting indeed. They're not just going to ride Bismack Biyombo all the way to the gates of hell. Is that not the plan anymore? I'm
not sure if that's going to happen, but I like the idea of them replacing DeAndre with Mo Bamba. Is like, he'll be big for lob. He can pick and pop a little bit at the very least. He certainly has potential to shoot. I kind of dig that one.
It's a great idea. Are you certain Ayton's gone from Phoenix? Obviously, that's where everything looks to be trending.
I'm reading the tea leaves on that.
Yeah. Like
I'm not certain. No, I would not say I'm certain on that.
Handicap it for me. Right now, just your gut. I mean, we know what we know.
Look, this is all based on my gut and based off of reporting. I mean, it seems extremely likely that he's not going to be there at this point. I don't know. Like, I don't know what the number is, but like, here's the other thing that has happened in the last couple of days. Detroit has drafted Jalen Duren. So they've also taken up a bunch of their cap space with these Knicks contracts that, likely take them out of a DeAndre Ayton sweepstakes. I don't think Oklahoma City's gonna pair DeAndre Ayton with Chet Holmgren. I don't know who the team is for DeAndre at the end of the day. It seems like the Knicks are not gonna go for DeAndre because they're not gonna sign Mitchell Robinson and they're gonna use their money on Jalen Brunson. Because the thing the whole way has been Phoenix doesn't want to match a max on DeAndre.
Who's going to give?
I would assume that there is a team. I would assume there's a team out there that is going to give him the max. If I was Chicago, for instance, I would be interested in seeing if Phoenix has any, but they're so close to the apron though, so they can't really even do like a Nikola Vucevic sign and trade. So that doesn't work. So that never mind. That doesn't work.
I mean, Atlanta's a name that's
it's hard to find the spot,
but that doesn't make any sense. Charlotte.
I mean, you can make a case for it, but Charlotte maybe, but they just drafted Mark Williams. That's another team that I think there was a case to be made, but just drafted a guy,
their center, right? And Christian Wood.
So it's San Antonio is the spot. Like it's if he's going to get like a very high level
son of a bitch, he worked it all the way
San
back.
Antonio.
That's pretty good.
I did. I'm pretty good at this, aren't I?
Sandbag.
I like if he's going to get it, it's probably going to be San Antonio, I would think. But maybe he does just stay there. It'd be hilarious if he took the qualifying offer.
He should.
I think that's a bad idea for him for what it's worth. Like, I think he should take his money, go get his money. But yeah, I wonder. I don't know. DeAndre's in a weird spot. It's hard because there are not many landing spots, because there are not many teams that want to invest this crazy amount of money in bigs. And it seems like Phoenix wants him back only at a certain price point, let's say, is maybe the best language.
There's also just not a lot of parallels. There's not a lot of examples of stuff like this happening. I'm struggling to think of one.
Yeah. Former number 1 overall pick has had a really strong run in the playoffs, but there are still questions about his overall upside.
Yeah, he's like 23
you could
years
make
old,
so many different cases for what the future of DeAndre Ayton looks like. There was a point in the playoffs where prior to the Dallas series, I was like, is this guy already a top 5 center in the league? Is that a thing? Are we at that point? And then the Dallas series happens and you start to, you're a big fan?
I'm a big fan of Ayton, but
I am too.
But I don't disagree with sort of the positional matrix that limits how much you should be investing in a 5. Because as versatile as he is, as valuable as he can be on the perimeter, as much as you can switch a bunch of stuff, as much as he has that great pick and pop game, all of these things, there's a cap, and there's ways that if you catch the wrong matchup, he can really get exposed. And I don't think that that's anything about him. I think that that's just the fact that he's not the truest of all the unicorns, because he's not an MVP caliber player. He's a borderline all-star caliber player.
Well, the thing he needs to be willing to do is just be more physical. He needs to punish dudes like Maxi Kleba, the smaller ball centers that get played on him. He has to be willing to just be like, fuck this, I'm taking over. And he has all of the skill to do it. We just haven't seen it from him yet. And
we saw that transition from
that's
Embiid
frustrating
years ago. I mean, there was a point where you're like, come, Joe, just wreck this dude. And when it clicked, it clicked. But, it's also Phoenix. I mean, that has to be part of the conversation. I think other teams wouldn't have allowed it to get to this point where, they're counting cents on the dollar.
Other teams, they would have maxed them, I think. It would have been the question of, instead of not being willing to pay him max money, let's try to pay him max money and get a team option on the 5th year. Would have been how they could have tried to get a win. Right. But no, I think Phoenix plays a huge role here, and Robert Sarver and what they want to do here. But, this is a front office that I have some questions about for reasons that you alluded to earlier in regard to the draft. I think they have smart people in that front offices, by the way.
They do.
Or in that front office. It's not like a whole front office thing. I just worry, why don't you care about the draft at all? Why are you not paying DeAndre? You have this contender now.
Yeah.
Make it work. I don't know.
This
might have been their window. That's what sucks.
That's the killer. If they lose Ayton, it's impossible for me, even if they get a Mo Bamba, to make the argument that they're still a true top tier team. And they were the best team in the NBA in the regular season, and they caught a crappy matchup that they didn't take advantage of, and it went 7, by the way. And had they played the Warriors, that would have been a very different Western Conference Finals. No, it doesn't. I'm not going to proxy championship them or anything, but come on now, Phoenix, you got it. You've been selling out every game. Just pay the man his money and give it a run. You only get so many more years of Chris Paul.
I think this is this is the point where, again, we get back to ownership. Pay the money. If you're going to buy a team, pay the money. If you are going to own an NBA team, pay these guys their money. That's what it comes down to. You're going to make money hand over fist because your franchise value is going to skyrocket. Pay these dudes their money if you're going to buy a team. That's the lesson of this podcast, I think.
You are not You are not, in fact, the owner of the team. You are merely, Peter Gruber said this on the Colin Cowherd podcast, you're merely the steward of the team. You merely are the shepherd of the team. And you're doing it for a whole bunch of other people, but you have to take care of the team. And the goal is very clear. It's win a championship.
Yep.
When is the Phoenix, since Charles Barkley was there, since, Steve Nash's MVP seasons, like when can the Phoenix Suns for 15 fucking years, when could they say, hey, we're a championship team? And they were right there. Finals, best record in the NBA the following season. They're right there. And they're going to back out now. Yeah, ownership is the ultimate differentiation point. And the teams that got good owners are going to take advantage.
Yep. Okay, Dieter, have you watched any fun movies recently?
I don't know. I saw the Bryan Cranston lottery movie. It was like something like.
I have not watched that yet. Is it good?
It is. I got through the entire thing. I didn't dislike it. Out of 4 stars, it is the definitive 2.5-star movie. I don't think I've ever seen a more 2.5-star movie. It's almost as if it was originally on basic cable. Like like it started on TNT. It was just fine. It was just fine. But I just rewatched the entirety of The Wire, and that shit's incredible. I mean,
it bangs. It's so good.
I'm trying to watch the new one that David Simon's doing on HBO, and it's like, this does not slap the same way. No, sir.
I haven't watched that yet. I've heard it's good. I just haven't gotten to it yet.
It's good, but it ain't The fucking Wire, Sam.
So I watched Interceptor on
I haven't
Netflix.
even heard of that. Interceptor.
It's the one with Elsa Pataki where you've seen her and she's like holding herself like with one arm from like what looks like a helicopter like thing that the helicopter lands on.
Yeah, the leg of the helicopter.
Yeah. It's the closest thing I've seen to an early 90s Steven Seagal movie since then.
Say no more. I'm in.
And it's like, look, it's ridiculous. And just in the same way that those like fucking Under Siege and Hard to Kill movies.
You knew what you were signing up for. You knew exactly what you wanted.
You know what you're signing up for?
Yep.
It is. She's perfect because like they know how to use her. They know how to use her likability. They know like that she's really fun and like really just like a good action star. Okay. The bad guys are just the worst people on the planet. And it's the script is not very good, but you know what? It rules. It rules. I'm sorry. This movie's getting terrible reviews. I think I saw on Rotten Tomatoes, it's at like 20%. This movie is fucking fun, and I don't care.
Well, it sounds like it's operating. You see that there's no clickbait to that movie. Like you know exactly what you want. You're getting exactly that. Doesn't mean it's good. Doesn't mean it's going to win any awards, but it is fulfilling its destiny. That's great. Which is the opposite of course, the Ben Affleck classic, The Accountant, which was billed as an action movie and was in fact the greatest comedy of the 21st century.
Shout out The Accountant. I watched that on my flight back from the United States after I had COVID. It just is like, it works. I'm sorry.
It's just hilarious.
It's a good movie.
My wife and I have never laughed harder in a movie theater, and no one else was laughing with us. And that's when I decided that I had to propose to this woman. We couldn't get enough. And then the biggest belly laugh of all, what was it? That theater over the Cineplex over in the Westfield, what was it? The West Side Mall over by where I was at on Pico. Going to the bathroom, and some lady comes out of The Accountant and goes, "That was so good." And I haven't laughed that hard since. That was just the funny, like, they're just like, you took that shit seriously. Has Top Gun made it down to Australia, Sam?
Yes, I've seen Top Gun Maverick. Have you seen it?
Yeah.
It's a beautiful movie.
why was Tom Cruise staring into the camera for that many minutes? There was like at least 5 minutes of Tom Cruise just sort of staring into the camera and smiling in aggregate in cumulative total. And at a certain point, it kind of got weird. I feel like they like
I
punched it
love
up
it.
that way. It was very good. It was very good. It was just it was strange. There was a strangeness to that film. I feel like it should be. I feel like it should be studied. Like there's hidden messages or something. Like I don't know what was going
Oh,
on
it
in
should
that movie.
definitely be studied. It's weird for all the things you're saying, but it's also like great. Like it
Yeah,
hits all of the notes possible. Like the rhythm is perfect.
it was very well
It's
written.
a great movie.
It didn't. I appreciate how little it dicked around. It's like we don't really need to
Yes.
develop that plot
Yeah.
any further. You got the gist. Let's move on and blow some shit up. And it's like, you know what?
Yeah, and like
Unlike everything else, I'm in. Like I showed up for some dog fighting. Let's see it.
yeah, and like you don't even know like who they're fighting. Like it's just
Nope.
random country, right?
Nope.
It's just here. Let's go.
Insert
Top Gun
country
Maverick.
here.
I'm in. Yeah. I talked a lot about Cha Cha Real Smooth on the last podcast. I would implore you to watch it. It is on Apple TV. It is
What's her name? Dakota Johnson.
Dakota
movie?
Johnson and Cooper Rafe. Yeah.
Okay. I'll watch it.
It's good. Very
I
good.
trust your recommendations. I hear that it's unpretentious, which is hard to believe considering Dakota Johnson's in it.
You know what? I'm a big Dakota Johnson fan. I am. I think that she is becoming very good at serving other actors that she's acting on screen with in a very unpretentious way, actually.
That's good.
Like she is like not the main, she's like the cipher. She's like the avatar for you in The Lost Daughter, where you have Olivia Colman is like the main character who's like acting around her, right?
Getting
It's
the
the same with
nominations.
Cooper Rafe in this movie. Yeah. Right.
Okay.
Like getting the nominations. Like Cooper Rafe in this movie is like the most likable person on planet Earth. And then you just have like Dakota Johnson here who is allowing him to be that likable and like be set him up to be that likable on screen. I think that is ultimately like her greatest gift as an actor. I think she's actually really, really good at that.
She's gone full Magic Johnson is what you're saying.
A little bit. Yeah. A little bit. Dieter, tell the people where they can find your work.
San Jose Mercury News East Bay Times at Dieter KMDR in San Francisco. I mean, if you've made it this far, you probably already knew all that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what I'm writing this week. I'll probably have something at some point.
When was the last time you took some time off, Sam?
Laura and I are going to Bali in like late July. So that's
what I get for asking.
Shout out to producers. Shout out to producers Zach and Jacob. Just the best. The absolute best. We'll be back later this week with some more free agency stuff. Could be as soon as tomorrow, could be as soon as the next day. We'll see how crazy free agency gets on July 30th. But until next time, we will talk soon. Bye.